Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Breslin. I am the Chief Executive of Futurelab. And I'm delighted to be here, delighted to be invited to speak to you today, delighted to be on the west coast of America again, which is my second most favourite place in the world. My most favourite place in the world is the west coast of Scotland, my home. I think there's something very special about the west coast in that you get to see the sun set on the ocean. But for those of you that arrived after dark last night, I can guarantee you didn't miss anything yesterday. But today's looking a bit more hopeful. So I'm hoping that some of you are at least aware of Futurelab, my organisation, or the work we've done. And many people describe Futurelab as innovators in education, which I always think is quite inaccurate, because I've never considered Futurelab as innovators. We work with innovators. We are privileged to work with innovative teachers, with subject matter experts, with companies who have great ideas, who are the true innovators. We get to work with children who are innovators in their own right. What we are good at is facilitating the innovation process, learning about the innovation that happens and reporting it back to make those results available to others, to inspire, to encourage their own innovation. What I'd like to talk to you today about is a couple of projects, and I'm just going to let these slides go on behind me. A couple of projects that we've been involved in, one specifically, Fountaineers. We set out to create an interactive, programmable fountain, which was a crazy enough idea in itself. What was even more crazy was that we were going to involve a whole school in it. It was going to be a whole school design process where teachers, children, external experts and engineers would act together as co-learners and co-designers to research, design, solve problems, and create this interactive fountain, which was going to be an end in itself. But the whole process of design was where most of the value was. And we were going to use that to explore ideas of participation, learner voice, to look at new ways of learning, to examine the relationship between teachers and the children. And so the process started off, the project started off with a number of workshops where we brought children together with fountain experts and people from outside and got everybody all excited about what we might create, because there was no predefined outcome to this. This was an open-ended project. What we did know was that it was going to be some sort of a fountain, some sort of a physical asset. We chose a fountain because everyone knew about fountains. We all know what a fountain is. We all like them. They're exciting. Children from very early years understand fountains. And we were working with a primary school with 7 age group years from 4 to 11 years old. And we brought them together to start to enthuse them about the project, and also to start this process of changing the relationship between the teachers and the children. The teachers were going to move back and become less of the leaders in the learning, and the children were going to move forward and assume that equitable position as part of the design team. And to kickstart that, we got the kids breaking out into mixed age groups to start taking some of these adults around about the school, to look at a couple of locations in the school and start to think, well, what is good about that location? What's bad about it? How could it be improved? And then start to bring these ideas together and then work together to think, well, what are we going to do with these ideas? How do we sort through them? How do we decide what is good and what is bad? And let's investigate different decision-making processes. And then from that, moving on to, well, what could this fountain look like? Let's everyone sit down, draw some images, conceptualize what could it be? And then going further, with each class, let's start to select a shortlist that will go forward for a further filtering process. And then, in all of this process, the skills of, collaborative development, decision-making, negotiating, started to come through. And the teachers were amazed at just how much capacity the children had. When they were asked to step up to the plate, how much they could bring to the table in terms of their own ideas and the rationed debate. And then as things got more technical, we introduced software packages to start to bring these concepts, these drawings into designs that looked as if we might be able to make something out of them. And at that stage, we introduced the idea of ICT guides. So year 5 pupils, be about 9, 10-year-old boys and girls, would apply to become an ICT guide, a mentor for other children, to teach them how to use the different software packages, to introduce the idea of the programmability of the fountain through Lego Mindstorms, and to bring the other kids along and teach them. And we got these kids to apply for those positions, to write their CVs, to interview. And what we found was that those kids that perhaps hadn't shone or hadn't had the opportunity to shine in the more formal lessons and through the more formal tests, suddenly this was their moment, and they really grasped the opportunity and developed. And also, the gifted and talented kids, the ones who excelled in all of the formal tests, it was a challenge to them as well, because this was something new, this was something less prescriptive, less predictable. And all in all, everyone moved forward, as well as the teachers. So, what we noticed as part of this was that there was quite a lot of discomfort, as well as excitement, enthusiasm. It was a real project. The children knew that something real was going to happen. This was not a theoretical exercise, but it was uncomfortable for everyone. They knew that this was different. They knew that the children recognized how the role of the teacher had changed, how they had taken a step back. They recognized that that was an unnatural position and probably felt uncomfortable and unnatural for the teacher. And the teachers themselves felt a bit, uncomfortable and nervous about the new role that they had assumed. But somehow it felt like the right thing to do, because everyone was participating, everyone was engaged, everyone felt ownership of the project, and everyone was developing new skills and new perspectives as part of that. And so the project lasted for about 2 years, the initial design over 1 school year, and then the build. And then what is there now is a programmable fountain that kids still use to develop ideas, and it is interactive. You run past it, it'll do certain things, play certain music. You jump on it, it'll squirt water in different directions, and all of that is programmable by the kids. The great thing about the project was the way it brought people out of themselves, out of the roles that they assumed were there. It brought the kids forward, and the teachers realized the potential, the untapped potential in their children. And when they took a step back, some of that potential was obvious to them. It was a great way of engaging kids. And as I said before, giving kids that didn't shine in a lot of the formal, structured learning a real chance to develop their own identity and their own skills and talents. Those were the good things about it. And I think there is a lasting effect on the school we worked with. They're now much more open to new ways of learning. The teachers are much more open to more learner-led, child-led activities, much more attentive to learner voice. Some of the bad things, or the things that we wouldn't do if we were to do it again, was that it was too long. It was a 2-year project. That's too long. 2 years is a long, long time in school, as I'm sure you'll all appreciate. But the idea of a design process was a very, very powerful mechanism to start to draw out all of these and different skills and capabilities. It was a bit too grand and too big. You know, an awful lot of the benefits from this exercise could have been obtained with a much smaller, much more contained project, which didn't cost as much. And I think what we recognised was that really we assumed at the start that everybody would be enthused about it, everybody would just jump in and start to make their own contributions. But I don't think we appreciated just how difficult it is to change behaviour, deeply inset behaviour. And that applies to the children as well as the adults and the teachers. Each group assuming their own roles, their own responsibilities, their own positions. And I think that's something you have to be very, very attentive to. But I think that for me, and for a lot of the teachers that were involved in that, the biggest thing about it, the biggest learning was that, you know, if you involve the people that you're trying to solve the problem for, then the solutions you get are so much more valuable because of that. I think too often as leaders, as teachers, as chief executives, you assume that your role is to solve problems for your market, your people, your students. But if you take a step back and say, well, this is our problem, and it's our shared responsibility to innovate and come up with solutions for problems that affect us all, then I think there is so much more potential to really get solutions that are truly transformational, are lasting, and really make the difference. So I'll leave it there. Thank you. Yeah.